Hello, everyone. There is a particular kind of arrival that is different from every other kind, and that I want to describe before I tell you what is arriving in your life in this specific moment and in the days that are immediately ahead. It is the arrival that comes when you were not specifically expecting it, or not expecting it in this form, or not expecting it this soon, or not expecting it from this direction. The arrival that happens through the door you were not watching because your attention was directed toward the doors that seemed more likely to be the ones through which what you were hoping for would eventually come. The unexpected arrival has a specific quality to it that the expected arrival does not, even when the expected arrival is something equally good or even better in the substance of what it brings. The unexpected arrival produces, in the moment of its arriving, a particular kind of wonder that the expected arrival cannot produce, because the expected arrival confirms what was already anticipated, and confirmation, while deeply satisfying, does not produce wonder the way that surprise does. What is coming toward you has the wonder quality, the specific quality of something that you were not expecting in this form, or this timing, or through this particular door, and that will therefore, in the moment of its arriving, produce the wonder that unexpected things produce in people who are open to receiving them, without first needing to explain how they arrived before allowing themselves to receive what they are. Welcome, and let me describe what is arriving. The abundance first, because I want to define it carefully in the way that definitions matter. When the word being defined is one that carries a lot of freight from how it has been used in various contexts, that may have given it associations that are not what I mean here. When I use it, abundance is not excess, not the having of more than could ever be used, or needed, or wanted, in a way that becomes its own burden, rather than the liberation that it was supposed to produce. Abundance is sufficiency, the specific and complete form of having enough. In whatever dimension the abundance is arriving, that produces the particular quality of ease that sufficiency provides when it finally arrives after a period of something less than sufficiency in whatever dimension of life has been less than sufficient for longer than was comfortable. Abundance is the end of the constraint. In whatever specific form the constraint has been present in your life. In the period that preceded this one, when the sufficiency was not yet available in the full form that it is now arriving in through the unexpected door that you were not specifically monitoring as the likely source of what was needed. I want to describe what the abundance looks like in the specific dimensions it is arriving in, because abundance, like miracle, is more useful when it is specific than when it is general. In the material dimension, the abundance looks like a loosening of something that has been tight in the practical and financial texture of your life, a specific tightness that you have been navigating around or through or simply living with as a constraint, that had the quality of permanence, even though it was always going to be temporary in the way that constraints, which are always temporary, can feel permanent from inside them before the loosening arrives and makes their temporariness visible. In retrospect, the loosening is arriving. Not dramatically, not in the form of a single event. That resolves all material difficulty simultaneously and produces a clean and sudden transition from constrained to unconstrained in a moment so obvious that the before and after are unmistakable to anyone observing from outside, but really in the form that real changes usually take, which is gradual and composed of smaller movements, each of which is in itself a loosening of something specific that was previously tight, and that together produced the full loosening of everything that had the tightness quality in the material dimension of your life. The first of the smaller movements is happening now, or is about to happen in the immediate days that this message is landing in. And it is the signal that the full loosening is underway in the gradual and real form that real changes take. In the relational dimension, the abundance looks like more of the specific quality of connection that has been present in your life, but not always in the amounts, or the consistency, or the depth that you have been hoping for, and occasionally feeling the absence of in the quiet moments when the presence of what is missing is more vivid than the presence of what is there. The relational abundance looks like someone or something moving toward you in the form of increased presence and increased investment. And the particular quality of attention, that means someone has decided that you are worth their full presence rather than the partial presence. That is sometimes all that is available from people who are present, but not fully in the specific and complete way. That full presence feels when it is actually given. Someone is giving you their full presence. In the days that are arriving, in whatever specific form, full presence takes, in the particular dynamic between you and this person that is now moving into its more complete expression. And in the internal dimension, the abundance looks like the particular ease of someone who has been carrying something and who is now, in this season, beginning to set it down not dramatically, not in the cathartic and complete moment of putting something down and walking away and never looking back, in the clean and final form of someone who has fully resolved what they were carrying, but in the real form of a weight becoming lighter as the conditions that produced it are themselves changing. In the material and relational dimensions that I have already described and that are producing, as a natural consequence of their changing, the internal ease that the external constraints were preventing while they were present. As they loosen, the internal ease arrives in proportion to the loosening, and together the material and the relational and the internal produce the abundance that the title is describing in its simplest and most accurate form. I want to speak about something that I think is important context for understanding why the abundance is arriving now, rather than earlier or later or in a different form than the form it is taking. In this specific season of your specific life, abundance, the real and lasting kind, tends to arrive when the person receiving it has released not the desire for it, but the grip on the specific form it was supposed to take. When it arrived, there is a specific form of grip that most of us maintain around what we are hoping for. That paradoxically slows the arriving of what we are gripping toward, because the grip, while it feels like holding on to what we want, is actually a form of constriction that prevents the full opening of the space in which what we want could arrive in whatever form it naturally takes, rather than the specific form we are gripping toward at some point in the period that preceded this one. You released the grip, not the desire, but the grip on the form, and the releasing of the grip created the opening through which the abundance is now arriving in the form it naturally takes, which is unexpected, because it is not the form you were gripping toward when the gripping was still happening. But that is better in the specific ways that what actually arrives is always better than what was being gripped toward in the imagined form that the imagination was providing. From inside the gripping, the releasing is what made the arriving possible. And the arriving is happening now, in the season that the releasing created the conditions for. I also want to speak about what the unexpectedness itself is telling you about the nature of what is arriving, because I think the unexpectedness is not incidental to the quality of what is arriving. It is a feature of it that carries specific information about how this abundance was produced and what it represents for the larger arc of your life, what arrives unexpectedly through the door you were not watching. At the time, you were not specifically anticipating is almost always the result of something you did or built or became without the specific and direct intention of producing this particular result in this particular form at this particular moment. It is the side effect of your general becoming rather than the direct result of a specific effort aimed at this specific outcome. And the side effects of general becoming are often the most significant returns on the investment of being who you are consistently across all the contexts and seasons that your life contains. The abundance arriving unexpectedly is the return on the investment of who you have been rather than on what you specifically did. To produce this particular result, and that is a more significant kind of return because it says something about who you are rather than only about what you did in a particular effort aimed at a particular outcome. Because it is the second word in the title and it deserves its own careful attention. Before I close this message, the celebration that is coming in is not something you are going to have to arrange or produce or create the conditions for through deliberate effort in the way that most celebrations require someone to decide that a celebration is happening and then make it happen through the practical effort of arranging what a celebration requires. This celebration is coming in the same way the abundance is, unexpectedly, through the door you were not watching, in the form you were not specifically expecting, at the time you were not necessarily anticipating. Someone else is producing the celebration for you, or the circumstances themselves are producing it in the form of something happening that is inherently celebratory without requiring your effort to make it so, because what is happening is itself the celebration, rather than requiring a celebration to be organized around it. Whew. I want to speak about what it means to receive a celebration you did not produce, because it is a different kind of receiving than the receiving of something you worked for or arranged or produced through direct effort. And I think understanding the difference will help you be in this celebration in the most complete form of being in something that is available to you when you receive something you produced. The receiving has a quality of confirmation, of the effort being validated, of the work being recognized in the proportionate form of a result that matches an investment, and the satisfaction of that matching is real and meaningful when you receive something you did not produce. The receiving has a different quality. The quality of grace, the specific and humbling experience of something arriving that was given rather than earned in the direct and specific form of something exchanged for a particular effort. Both are valuable, both are real, and both produce different and equally important things in the person receiving them. But the grace quality is the rarer one, and the one that most requires a specific kind of openness to receive fully, because the openness required is the openness of someone who can accept something beautiful without needing to have produced it to feel deserving of it. You deserve it without having produced it because of who you are and what you carry and the particular quality of your presence in the world that produces this kind of giving from outside you towards you in the unexpected and celebratory form that is arriving now, in the specific and embodied form of someone receiving it rather than producing it. Because the receiving of a celebration is a different experience from the producing of one, and this is specifically the receiving experience that is coming for you. The celebration arriving from outside you feels like being seen and acknowledged by something larger than your own assessment of what you have done and what it deserves, which is always the most meaningful form of any acknowledgement. The form that comes from somewhere other than yourself and therefore carries the particular weight of something that was not arranged or produced or managed into existence by the person it is acknowledging. You are being acknowledged by something outside yourself for something real that you have done or built or become in the time that preceded this one, and the acknowledgement is arriving in the form of a celebration that you did not specifically arrange or produce or manage into existence. That is the most meaningful celebration available, and it is yours. In the days that are arriving, I want to give you something practical now for how to be in this season of abundance and celebration. As it arrives, because abundance and celebration, like all the good things, require something from the person receiving them to be fully received rather than partially received in the managed and defended form that some people receive good things without knowing that is what they are doing. The first thing, let yourself be surprised. Even if you are watching this message and therefore have some advance notice of what is coming, let the surprise of its actual arrival be what it is in the moment it arrives, which will be more surprising than the description of what was coming could have prepared you for, because descriptions of good things are always less than the good things themselves. When they actually arrive in the full form of their physical and real presence in your actual life. The second thing, give the abundance room to grow by not immediately filling the space it opens with the next thing on the list of what needs to be addressed or managed or solved now that the constraint that was preventing the addressing or managing or solving has loosened. Let the loosening be felt first in the full form of its presence before it becomes the resource for the next project or the next problem or the next thing that needs attention on the always present list of what your life contains, that requires managing. Be in the abundance before you use it. And the third thing, be present for the celebration. In the full and unguarded form of someone who is allowing themselves to be celebrated without deflecting or minimizing or managing the experience into something less than what it actually is by immediately turning attention to what still needs to be done or what has not yet been achieved or what comes next before the present moment of the celebration has been fully inhabited. The present moment of the celebration deserves to be fully inhabited by you as the person it is arriving for, and in honor of unexpected abundance and celebration are arriving through the door you were not watching. At the time, you were not necessarily anticipating in the form you were not specifically expecting, which is what makes them the particular and wonderful quality of the unexpected arrival that produces wonder rather than only satisfaction. Be in the wonder when it arrives rather than immediately explaining it into something more ordinary and more understandable and less wonder producing than what it actually is. When it is allowed to be fully what it is, without the explanation, arriving before the wonder has had time to be what it is. Let it be wonderful, because it is, and it is coming for you right now, in the days that are immediately ahead, through the door you were not watching, which is the best door of all the available doors for things of this quality to arrive through.